Hey guys, I'm here at NASA today filming all kinds of awesome things about our space program and what's going on with Kennedy Space Center. So the first thing I want you to see is I'm gonna flip it around. I'm gonna start filming. Do you see in my background how we have the NASA sign? It's gonna be super fun. We're about to head out on the bus tour and I'm gonna film some stuff for you. Okay, so we're about to get on the bus to start to the video or the bus tour of the launch pad, y'all.
We have pondered our place amongst the stars since the dawn of humankind. We've looked at the stars with wonder and amazement, their glow guiding our travel for centuries. The more we learn about our universe, the more questions we have.
I'm Emily Calandrelli, and today you'll be following me behind the gates on this exclusive bus tour of Kennedy Space Center. Our journey will take us past active facilities and end at the visitor complex's own Apollo Saturn V Center.
But before we begin this journey, just like every NASA mission, our #1 goal is to return home safely. So always stay seated while the bus is in motion. Please, no food or drinks on the bus with the exception of water. Please keep conversation to a minimum so others may hear and enjoy the tour. No photography is permitted at the security gate, but there will be plenty of photo opportunities during the tour.
All right. Well, we are off. Now you have come to the Kennedy Space Center, which is located on Merritt Island, Florida. Now, Merritt Island is an actual island here in the state of Florida. It's completely surrounded by water with the Banana River on one side and the Indian River on the other. Now, the island is about 75 miles long and about 5 miles wide. The northern part of the island does belong to the Kennedy Space Center. In fact, they own 140,000 acres of land, to which they only occupy about 7,000 acres of it. The rest of it is part of the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge and a black zone. So as we're going through today, keep an eye out in the waterways as you might spot some beautiful birds like the great blue herons. Keep an eye out in the waterways for turtles with their heads popped up, or you might spot an alligator or two on your way. On the right-hand side, we have a Mercury Redstone rocket. This is one like our first American astronaut, Alan Shepard, launched into space on. He launched May 5th, 1961. Now, the Redstone rocket is really just a missile that they took the warhead off the top, put a capsule up there, put a man inside, and shot him up into space. Yep, no windows either. And our next video is going to tell us more about that Mercury Redstone rocket. Now we're getting ready to go through security gates.
Redstone rocket. It represents NASA's earliest efforts to send humans into space. These Redstone rockets were formerly ballistic missiles provided to NASA by the U.S. Army. In October of 1958, NASA formally organized Project Mercury with the mission to investigate man's reaction to this new environment and safely recover the capsule and its pilot. Man rating for human spaceflight on what was previously a ballistic missile was no easy task. After several modifications and test flights, a Mercury capsule carrying Ham, a chimpanzee, was successfully launched and recovered on January 31st, 1961. Just months later, on May 5th, astronaut Alan Shepard launched on a Mercury Redstone rocket, becoming the first American in space.
Hi, I'm Janet Petro, and welcome to NASA's John F. Kennedy Space Center, where NASA astronauts have ventured forth on flights of exploration since the 1960s. And what an exciting time to visit our multi-user spaceport. Through our Commercial Crew program, we are sending astronauts to the International Space Station from American soil for the first time since the Space Shuttle program ended in 2011. We're continuing to launch new research experiments and supplies to the space station with our commercial resupply services and launching the most technologically advanced scientific instruments to date into space through our Launch Services program. This all culminates in our ultimate mission, the Artemis program, where NASA will return to the moon. this time with the first woman and first person of color, and continue on to Mars. In all our history, there's been one common theme woven throughout our DNA. It's our insatiable desire to explore beyond our home planet in our never-ending quest to expand our knowledge of the universe. As you venture behind the gates, you'll find a community of the most talented, dedicated, motivated workforce anywhere in the world who believe in the unlimited potential of space exploration. This is an active spaceport where new things are happening every day. You never know what you might see, so enjoy your tour.
Approaching the Vehicle Assembly Building, or as NASA calls it, the VAB. It is one of the largest buildings in the world by volume, and is the place where NASA completes the final assembly of its rockets before launch. The sheer scale of this building is hard to grasp, even when you're right next to it.
Do you ever feel really small when you think about space? What about when you're standing next to a skyscraper or a really big bridge? Well, I feel about as small as an ant right now. I'm standing inside the Vehicle Assembly Building trying to grasp how large it really is in here. It has 4 bays. Each bay has 2 large horizontal doors below it and 7 smaller vertically opening doors above it, tall enough to fit the world's largest rocket through. In fact, these are the largest doors in the world.
Construction of the VAB required 65,000 cubic yards of concrete, 45,000 steel beams, 1 million steel bolts amounting to almost 100,000 tons of steel. Notice the flag painted on the outside of the VAB? It's the size of a 21-story building. The blue section alone is the size of an NBA basketball court. Each star is 6 feet across, and each red and white stripe is wide enough for this bus to drive down. And the entire VAB? It's so huge that the Roman Colosseum would fit on the roof with room to spare for a parking lot. By volume, the VAB can fit 3.5 Empire State Buildings, and it would take 250 billion ping pong balls to fill it.
Take a look at the 4-story building with the slanted windows as we drive through this area. This is the Launch Control Center, where launch directors and their teams oversee every rocket that lifts off from KSC and give the final go or no go. I'm inside the LCC with Charlie Blackwell Thompson, NASA's first female launch director. Now, Charlie, can you tell us a little bit more about what a launch director does?
Absolutely. The launch director's job during the planning phase is to ensure that you have everything in place that you need to safely and successfully launch the Artemis missions. That includes things like your requirements are set, your launch commit criteria are understood, your procedures are ready to go, and your team is trained. The folks that sit in this room on launch day, they have a tough job, and that's to determine if the flight and the ground systems are go or no go.
All right, so we're passing in front of the Vehicle Assembly Building, and if they'd allow us to walk through that front door, we can walk directly into the middle of the building, look up, and see the roof on this 52-story, 1-story building. Now we're seeing the backside of the launch out there, the kind of a tall building. That's Launch Complex 37. That's where they launched the Delta IV and the Delta IV Heavies. If you go to the left a little bit more, you'll see 4 lightning rods with an upside down L there. That is Launch Complex
Discovery.
That's Launch Complex 41. That's where they launched the Atlas V rockets. And then, if you keep going a little bit more to the left, you'll see Launch Pad 39A and 39B. And we'll talk more about those a little bit later. But these are the launch pads here. The ones over here on the left are going to be your ones at Cape Canaveral. And then there's 2 launch pads at the Kennedy Space Center.
And so there's so much to learn from the moon. We're still learning from what the samples we gathered during the Apollo program. The beauty of what we're doing today is that instead of going for a short trip, we're going to stay.
It's of an 8-lane highway. right in the middle.
45 minutes to open up those doors.
From the vehicle assembly building to launch pad 39A, it is 3.5 miles. From here, vehicle assembly building to launch pad 39B, it is 4.2 miles away. Now on the left-hand side, we can see the launch control center with those dark slanted windows. Those windows are actually made of Kevlar. So if we have a hurricane that comes through and blows out any of the windows, it can't. And if there's any blasts or explosions that happen, those windows will not break as well.
And then this.
Now in front of us, we have high bays 1 and 3. 1 is closer to the launch control center. High bay 3 is more towards the right here. High bay number 3 is home to the Artemis, the new Space Launch System rocket. And they are debating whether or not to be rolling that back in. If they do decide later this afternoon, they will start tomorrow to roll it back in for the hurricane to let it go. But they have scrubbed the launch for next week, just in lieu of the storm coming. Now, if you take
We're inside the VAB at level 26, 274 feet up. And I can see behind us, right over to the right, the newly added crew access arm attached to this mobile launcher. I want everyone here to meet Cliff Lanham, the mobile launcher project manager. Cliff, can you explain the significance of adding that access arm?
Sure. The crew access arm is one of the last major modifications to the mobile launcher in preparation for SLS and Orion. It basically will be the very last place on Earth that the crew will be before they're in the spacecraft and headed to space. Now, the white room provides a contamination-free environment up next to the spacecraft, and as you suspect, it's white. It's the white room.
Makes sense. Now, how does the mobile launcher support the SLS rocket?
The mobile launcher provides fuel and power to the SLS and Orion. It's actually the stacking platform for the rocket. So there's a platform next to this 380-foot tower that the rocket is actually built next to, and then the umbilical arms attached to it to provide that fuel and power.
Wow. And so does the mobile launcher actually go all the way to the launch pad with the rocket?
It does, and the crawler transporter comes in, picks up the mobile launcher with the rocket, transports that entire thing out to the pad in preparation for the launch.
Wow. Oh, that is very impressive.
It is, and I hope everyone here today has a great time at Kennedy Space Center. Enjoy all the great exhibits, and come back soon.
NASA is known for dreaming big, and big dreams require big equipment. I'm standing next to the crawler transporter, the largest self-powered land vehicle in the world. It was originally built in 1965 for the Apollo program, and has since been updated to accommodate the space shuttle and now NASA's SLS rocket. Weighing in at 6 million pounds and capable of lifting and hauling 18 million pounds, the crawler is an engineering marvel, even without a rocket sitting on top of it. This thing has 2,750 horsepower V16 diesel engines that can carry the crawler up to a top speed of, wait for it, 1 mile per hour while carrying a rocket. Keep an eye out for the crawler as we approach this area. And remember, we are visiting a working spaceport, so while the crawler may not stay in one area for very long, it's bound to be out here somewhere.
All right, so we're going to get a view of crawler transporter number 1, and it's going to be over on your left-hand side. There's a building that says Boeing, and then just to the left of it, to the right of it, there's a windsock, and underneath that windsock is crawler transporter number 1. You can see the far left-hand driver's box there, and there is another driver's box on the opposite diagonal right-hand corner. As this vehicle only goes forward, there is no reverse on it. Now the top of it is about the size of a baseball infield, and the mobile launcher platform, which they're going to be building on these pylons that we just passed behind us, will sit up there and it'll go under and pick it up, is larger than a baseball infield.
Number 2 at the Kennedy Space Center. Crawler transporter number 2 will be used for the SLS program to take the launch vehicle back and forth to the pad. We will begin by going underneath the mobile launcher. We'll pick it up, we'll take it over to the VAB. They'll then assemble the launch vehicle on top of the mobile launcher, and then we'll come back to the VAB. We'll slide underneath it again, we'll pick it up, We'll take it out to the pad, a trip of about 4.2 miles. It'll take us about 7 hours to get there. But during our trip to the launch pad, we'll roll over a specially prepared crawler weight that consists of anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of special rock. Below that is limestone that's about 4 feet thick and compressed to hold the weight of the crawler and the mobile launcher. And then below that is some hydraulically compacted sand that can support all the weight. And then once we're there, we'll drop it all off. And then a few days later, there'll be a launch. We'll come back, we'll pick the mobile launcher up, and we'll bring it back to the VAB to start the process all over again.
With 50 years and some 3,000 kilometers or 2,000 miles on the clock, NASA expects the crawlers to be in operation for at least another 3 decades. How cool is that? The latest refurbishment is complete and preparation is well underway for the first SLS mission. The crawler will be doing what it was originally designed to do once again, which is moving rockets.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
When President John F. Kennedy made this speech in 1962, he set in motion an era of discovery that would change humankind forever. 7 years after he spoke these ambitious words, the world watched as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first people to walk on the moon. The achievements of the men and women who worked on the space program in these early decades of NASA helped propel the technology we use every day. NASA and the thriving private space industry at Kennedy Space Center today are the living legacy of their story. As we arrive at the Apollo Saturn V Center to learn more about that historic era, get ready to step back into a time when NASA had everything to prove to a nation focused on one goal: to be the first country to land a person on the moon.
All right, so we've arrived here at the Apollo Saturn V Center. And if you take a look directly in front of me across the water, you'll see a blue fixed service structure there with a water tower to the left. This is Launch Pad 39A. SpaceX has taken a 20-year lease out on this launch pad, and this is where they launch some of the Falcon 9 and all of the Falcon Heavy rockets.
As you enter, please move all the way to the front of the theater to make room for the guests behind you. Our presentation will begin shortly. The greatest adventure mankind has ever undertaken.
When I was a kid, I used to dream about flying through space. Every week on TV, I'd watch them all. And in the end, when we actually did send men into space, it turned out that those were exactly the qualities it took. I'm John Hudson. This is Pad 39 of the Kennedy Space Center. I was a launch controller here when from this very spot, man took off to fly to the moon. It was a journey that began 12 years before that rocket ever left the ground. And it started on the other side of the world. Back then, we were one of two superpowers that always seemed to be on the edge of a terrible war. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first ever man-made satellite into Earth orbit. They called it Sputnik, which means traveling companion. And in a world where peace hung in a delicate balance, it seemed to create a dangerous advantage. Every ham radio operator in America could hear it beeping. People were afraid. Were the Soviets looking down on us? Watching us? If they could make a satellite pass over our cities, could they do the same with a bomb? Our the space program kicked into high gear, and less than 2 months later, we were ready to launch our own satellite. It was being called the space race, and we were running a distant second. In 1961, we fell even further behind. Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man into space, circling the world in just 89 minutes. We had our own astronauts, and they were eager and ready to take the big ride. But our manned space program couldn't seem to get off the ground. We stuck with it, and on May 5th, 1961, things finally started going right. Astronaut Alan Shepard put his ship Freedom 7 6.5 miles into space. America had its first space hero. Just a few days later, our space program received a new challenge. But this one did not come from the Soviet Union. It came from our young president. In one inspiring moment, he changed the mission from one based in fear of the present to one of hope for the future.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We hadn't been more than 16 minutes into space, and now we were going to the moon. We would have to design a rocket the size of a 36-story office building, put it together with the precision of a microscope, and accelerate it to the speed of a bullet. Then we would have to guide it to a moving target 250,000 miles away. Many people thought it was an impossible dream, but 400,000 of us set about making that dream a reality. It would be the longest, most hazardous voyage that any man had dared to attempt. But step by step, mission by mission, we orbited the Earth, perfecting the skills and technologies we would need on this incredible journey. Our astronauts practiced maneuvering, docking, and the 1,000 other tasks that would comprise the moon mission. We created new alloys, lighter and stronger than anything seen before. We designed communication systems that would be reliable over the vast distances. And behind it all, we tried to perfect the rocket that would be powerful enough to punch out of Earth orbit and take us to the moon. One day, however, the dream of flying to the moon almost slipped away. It was January 27th, 1967. Astronauts Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee were on board Apollo 1 for a plugs-out test, a full-scale dress rehearsal for the actual launch. Suddenly it happened. There was a fire in the capsule. 3 men whose lives had been in our hands were lost.
Surely the opening vistas of space promise high costs and hardships, as well as high reward. But this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them.
After Apollo 1, some thought we'd failed, and that the moon was out of our reach. But we owed it to those men to learn from their sacrifice and to carry on. We started taking the Apollo vehicle apart, piece by piece. Was the design flawed? Had safety been compromised? Tough questions. And we spent 1.5 years redesigning the spacecraft so that no astronaut's life would ever be at risk because we overlooked something, or because we could have done something better. A moon rocket is 91% high explosive, and it goes into the most unforgiving, hazardous environment there is. We could never make it risk-free, and the men who flew them knew that. We didn't send men into space again until Apollo 7 orbited the Earth testing some of the new design. When everything worked perfectly, the decision was made. The next mission would travel to the moon. It was mankind's destiny to leave the shores of our planet behind and strike out across the vast ocean of space. In the great span of our history, now was the time that we could. Now was the time that we would. On the eve of the longest, most dangerous journey that any man had ever undertaken. And it would be taken by Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders, the crew of Apollo 8. Through those doors, you'll find the firing room, launch control, just as it was on December 21st, 1968.
Please gather all of your belongings, take small children by the hand, and proceed through the open doors to firing room number 1. All strollers, wheelchair guests, and hearing impaired guests, please use the door to your far left.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is the firing room, launch control for the Apollo mission. This is not a mock-up. These are the very consoles we sat at when men first took off to fly to the moon. The tragedy of Apollo 1 had put us a year and a half behind. We were making up for it in one big leap, and we were doing it with a rocket that no man had ever flown before. It was a few days before Christmas 1968 when Apollo 8 sat on the pad. She was the first of a new kind, a moon rocket. This was the Phoenix, risen from the ashes of Apollo 1. The first Apollo crew did not die in vain. This was to be their testament. "36 stories high, she had been fully fueled throughout the night. The liquid oxygen in her tanks caused ice to form on the outside of the craft. The extreme temperature differences between the air and the sub-zero fuel caused the metal skin of the rocket to expand and contract. Everyone was on the pad agreed. It was as though the rocket was alive, breathing, straining at the leash. Earlier in the morning, astronauts Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders had made their final preparations before taking that long ride out to the waiting spacecraft. The minimum safe distance from a Saturn V at liftoff was 3 miles. The reason was simple. When fully fueled, the rocket contained the explosive power of an atomic bomb. As the clock counted down, the astronauts and all of us in launch control went through the pre-flight checks, our hands on the controls of the most powerful, most complex machine ever built. It had over 2 million separate systems, and to bring these men back alive, everything had to work perfectly. Each individual system had been tested, but what we didn't know was how they would perform when all 2 million began to work together. That moment would come when the countdown clock reached 0. If a maneuvering thruster failed, if communications broke down, if navigation was off by 1 degree, if any piece of the miles of wiring, circuits, relays, or valves was defective, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders would pay with their lives. As they sat, waiting for launch on that chill December morning, these 3 astronauts were back to what they had always been, test pilots. Mankind is about to leave his planet behind and journey to another. It is one of those rare moments when history is not being made, destiny is being embraced.
You can see what they're saying on the screens. Oh my God, that's like...
During this period, once we do get the firing command, the various tanks will in the 3 stages of 7-5 once we get the pressure level.
The desks. To this people
Our status quo indicates that all aspects are ready, instrument computers ready, spacecraft ready, final check of the emergency detection system, that already has first stage preparations are completed.
We're on. Ready to go to crossfire. Stand by, Walter. Okay, you're on.
All systems go. T-minus 45 seconds incoming. First stage, the oxygen tank has been pressurized and the pressure is still building up. Coming up in 90 seconds, mark T-minus 90 seconds incoming. All wait for crew standing by, spacecraft coming to the front corner, chin over, Bill Anders. We now report that the liquid hydrogen tank in the first stage is pressurized, running 15 seconds.
Sequence of things that are happening.
Finally, this time, we find a woman at this time. The switches work on the spacecraft. 20 seconds, all aspects will be still roll at this time.
There's the 10-second countdown.
Apollo 8 successfully orbited the moon, and the astronauts returned safely to the Earth. I know. I'm Jim Lovell, and I was one of the crew of this spacecraft, Apollo 8. We were the first men to see the surface of the moon from just a few miles away. But it was the hundreds of thousands of men and women who worked in that team, and the billions of people who supported the mission that really made it possible. That way, I guess, we all went to the moon. Now, on the other side of those doors, you'll find an actual Saturn V moon rocket. It's still the most powerful, the most complex machine ever built. And I guess it's the only one that can take you to another planet. I actually got to fly on a second flight to the moon called Apollo 13. But that's another story.
Alright guys, this is the Saturn V rocket. I'm trying to zoom out so you can see it. Isn't that insane? So then it goes down the length of the building. This is all the part that was filled up with rocket fuel so that the little Apollo capsule was at the very tip top of it. So I'm walking the length of the Saturn rocket right now to get to the end of it. I don't even think I'm going to get to the end of it. Holy cow, y'all. Oh, yep, there's the first stage. So this is where they have the separation. So that was just the launch part. And this is the second part of the rocket. You gotta go under it. Here's what's crazy. I'm not even to the Apollo part. Can you believe this? So this is all. That's the second stage rocket ending. Then here's the third stage part of the rocket that's filled with fuel. Think about all of that filled. And then here's what's crazy. At the tip end of it, right there, is where the Apollo capsule was. Crazy, huh? So we just walked the entire length of that rocket. Oh, guys, look, this is where they filmed the stuff for the Artemis and it's where NASA TV broadcasts from.
We're about to go into us.
I know, right? And then this right here is one of the Apollo capsules. There's that. So this is one of the Apollo capsules. We're gonna go up and take a look at what it looks like inside. Look at that inside. It's like crazy.
Don't you want to live in there for a couple days?
There's just a video of all of them living inside that capsule and all of the things that they did.
Columbia, Houston, we're standing by, over. Columbia, Houston, over. Houston, Columbia, read you loud and clear, how many? Right, bye, Mike, how did we go, over? Let's say everything's going just swimmingly, beautiful. Great, we're standing by for Eagle. Okay, Houston, come along. We copy out. Yeah, my controllers, we're off to a good start, light full. AOS Slim. Roger, AOS Slim. Houston, Eagle, how do you read? Bye, Eagle, we're standing by for your burner report, over. Roger, burn with our time.
As soon as the Eagle reappears, things begin to go wrong. Radio communications break down.
Eagle, Houston, did you call?
Messages to Eagle must be relayed through Mike Collins aboard the command module Columbia. Throughout the crucial final checks, contact with the Eagle keeps keeps dropping out.
Don't lose that data.
And Flight Director Gene Kranz inches closer to aborting the mission.
Clock is using we lost Eagle again. Okay, we got data back. Radar flight looks good.
With the vital computer links temporarily holding, the moment of decision is now.
Okay, all flight controllers, go for landing. Retro, go. Line up, go. Guys, go. Roll, go. Telcom, go. GSP, go. Ecom, go. Surgeon, go. Capcom, we're go for landing. Eagle gets in here, go for landing, over. Roger, go for landing. 1, 0.
Hurtling toward the moon at 3,800 miles per hour, Neil Armstrong notices his checkpoints are all appearing too soon. This means a serious navigation error.
You think you're a little bit long downrange?
At these speeds, 3 seconds long means missing the safe landing zone by 3 miles.
We got data dropout. Still looking good.
Suddenly, the computer starts firing the maneuvering thrusters, jolting the ship back and forth. This has happened in simulations, but never this much, never this violent. The smooth descent is becoming a bumpy ride. Before that is fixed, a problem with the onboard computer.
1202 alarm.
The astronauts have rehearsed for thousands of possible malfunctions, but not this one. It had been considered too unlikely. Seconds seem like hours as everyone struggles to remember the meaning of a 1202 program alarm. The deadline to safely abort is vanishing fast.
What is the reading on the 1202 program alarm?
1202 means the Eagle's onboard computer is overloading. This means Houston is blind, unable to make navigation corrections or interpret the data coming from Eagle's computer. Armstrong and Aldrin are on their own. Mission Control decides they can go ahead.
We're going, Jasper. We're going that alarm.
If the data link doesn't fail again.
We're going that alarm.
1,000 feet, and Neil Armstrong can see that the computer is proposing to put them down in a dangerous place. That landing site is full of boulders. If they land there, they will never take off again.
Okay, we're going.
At 350 feet, Armstrong ignores his computer navigation and veers away from the rocky landing site with no time to explain to Mission Control.
Okay, all flight controllers and cut.
In Mission Control, everybody is stunned. At 300 feet, the Eagle has left its flight plan and taken off at full speed across the face of the moon.
Eagle Houston is descent to fuel. Monitor, over.
90 seconds of fuel remaining. Now less than 200 feet, and the Eagle is too low to safely abort back into orbit. They call this part of the flight plan Dead Man's Curve.
No level? All right.
All that's left for Mission Control is to read off the fuel remaining in seconds.
60 seconds. 60 seconds.
The entire moon landing has come down to 2 men and 1 minute.
Forward. 20 feet down, 2.5. And after 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Forward. Light on. Down 2.5. Forward. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Make it down. 4 forward. 5 to the right roll. Down 1/2. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. And shut down. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
A short time later, history is made again.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
For one incredible moment, we are one people with one history, watching our destiny unfold.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
was a moment shared by an entire world.
Dear men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon. It came in peace for all mankind.
With these first steps, mankind stood on the highest ground, and we saw our planet as our home port in the endless ocean of space.
There was something which was surprising to me. It occurred as I was standing on the surface. Just after we had landed, I'd gone down, standing on the surface and looking at planet Earth for the first time. Seeing the beauty, seeing the finiteness of it, the limits of it, and realizing what a shame it was that people were confronting each other on that planet without realizing what it was doing to the planet. It was a very emotional moment for me. I actually shed a couple of tears. Something totally unexpected for an engineer fighter pilot to be crying quietly up there on the moon.
Mankind had achieved a tenuous foothold in the heavens, and a new and exciting world lay waiting to be explored. The first mission had stayed for only one day, but over the next 3.5 years, 5 more Apollo missions visited the moon, and with each one, we stayed longer, roamed further, and discovered more.
I never thought when I was a kid building rockets, in high school, that we would go to the moon, before the end of the century. I mean, I thought that was something that was way in the future, fantasy.
I was rolling on the moon one day in a very month of December. Hey, look at the size of that rock. That is the best example we got. Just don't stub your toe.
We have got to understand that as a people, we need to stretch. We need to reach beyond our grasp. We need to strive to do things that seem impossible, because in the accomplishment of them, we move society forward.
Boy, isn't the beauty of this place is just absolutely incredible.
One of the astronauts has said those hills that we climbed give our children and grandchildren a different perspective, that they see the mountains that we couldn't see. And so what we consider impossible, they're dreaming about.
3, 2, 1.
When I have a chance to talk to kids, I tell them, the first thing I tell them is to take the word impossible out of their vocabulary. Go to their teacher tomorrow morning and scratch it out in the dictionary. The word doesn't exist. If I can stand here and tell you that I lived on the moon, that I called the moon my home for 3 days, you tell me what is impossible in this day and age, much less in a generation that follows, much less into the 21st century. Nothing is impossible.
I like exploring things, inventing. I would like to go up there and find out what's really up there.
I would like to be an astronaut. I like to design rockets.
Payload specialist.
I'd be a ground control officer.
The thing that my mom can't understand is I'm terrified of heights, but I want to be an astronaut.
There's so many things I'd love to do. I would explore, I'd look for everything.
I would try to start a farm.
Millions of other galaxies that you might be able to live in.
It's the unknown. Anything's possible.
You may be able to cure certain diseases. On Mars and dance on it.
Play basketball, but you can still be short. Because then you could fly up in the air. Baseball would be awesome.
Hit the ball, you get a home run every time.
There are a lot of things that could benefit mankind that we, because of science, we simply cannot do on Earth.
It's such a big universe, and it's kind of strange to think that just this one tiny planet was chosen to have life on it.
I hear they're finding new planets or moons, and finding out more about how stars are working, and it makes me feel like it's trying to tell me something.
What's it trying to tell you?
That you belong up there with them.
The Apollo program ended in December of 1972, but our journey into space is just beginning. I'm Neil Armstrong. The future of space travel is being written right now in the dreams and imaginations of a new generation. Perhaps that's the greatest legacy of Apollo. It shows our children and grandchildren that with courage, imagination, and the will to explore, no dream is impossible.
So this is the Apollo outfit that they wore inside. Jim Lovell wore this. Here's his spacesuit maintenance kit. His go no go cue card that they would look at. This is what they carried around to gather rocks from the moon. What the astronauts carried, the lunar sample collector, the contingency plan. Oh, look! These are their maps on the surface of the moon. Here's the camera from Apollo. This is how they would weigh scales that they would weigh the rocks. The gloves that they wore. Super crazy.
And this is the glove.
This is a replica of the flag that they put up.
And this is the American
cool.
flag on the surface of the moon.
So this is Alan Shepard's extravehicular suit. So this is what he would wear when he would go outside, like in the rover, or onto the surface of the moon. This is what he would wear. These were the designs. So they didn't actually use these, but these were the designs that they used until they landed on the other one with the red and white buttons on it. That's crazy. The whole point is the engineering, right? Like, look at their engineering, all these different thoughts and ways to look at it. And here we go, you guys. Here's a moon rock. Lunar sample from Apollo 15. See it on there? Super cool. And then I'm gonna head on over here. This is the moon rock containment vessels that they use. So they would use those, put the rocks inside of there so that they could bring it back to Earth. I'm gonna go over here too. This is another moon rock. A lunar sample. That's insane. They estimate it to be 3.7 billion years old. And then finally, this is the Apollo 14 capsule. So here it is, the picture of it, and it splashed back down. And then here it is. So it went to the moon and back. Crazy how well. You can see the outside of it. You can see the inside where they would sit. There's seats inside. Oh my gosh, you guys. I have so many things to film and show you. I get so excited about it. This is the LEM. So it's not the actual one, because what they do, and these are like a replica of astronauts playing golf on the moon, because astronauts actually did that. But this is the LEM, the LEM, and the silver part, that copper part right there, that stayed on the surface of the moon. And so then the modules came down, lodged into it, the lunar landing module, and then the module at the top, the gray part, would go back up and dock with the part of the Apollo that was orbiting the moon, while the other, so there were 3 astronauts that traveled in the Apollo missions. One of them stayed up in the command module and orbited the moon, while the other 2 came down with the LEM docked with the LEM, did their thing, did the science, gathered all the things, and then they would leave this orange part and go back up and dock with the orbiting part of the Apollo, and then that's when they would come back to Earth. So that's pretty cool. So this is an example of the LEM. Okay, and this is the rover, the lunar rover. So if you look at Apollo 16 back there, that's a picture of the astronauts that took it up in Apollo 16. That was the actual one they took up. This is a replica of the lunar rover. But what's so fascinating to me is the size of the seats, because it had to accommodate them in their excursion spacesuits. So this is what the rover looked like. And then they have this little golf cart thing that they carried around with them when they were collecting samples. You see, there's a picture of him doing that. That's what one of those looked like. It was the lunar tool cart. It was just kind of funny. And then they had like, that looks like a dog pooper scooper back there, but we would use it to scoop up the rocks and do that for their collection. And then here's another example of a rover that they used in Apollo 17. It says back there, Gene Cernan drove the lunar rover during the last mission to Mars. So Apollo 17 was the last time we went to the moon, which, think about that, that was in the 60s. So now NASA's talking about going back to the moon in your lifetime. So it's kind of cool. So then here's another lunar. And then when it got up there, this is so interesting, they took it up in parts. And so when the astronauts got up there, they had to put the rover together so that they could drive it around. So here's what the rover looked like. And then finally, here's a spacesuit. So there was a space helmet, and then the suit is what they wore. This is Cernan. Remember Gene Cernan? He's the one driving the rover over there. This was his spacesuit. And then those are his boots. That's pretty awesome, huh?
On creating cost-effective access to the International Space Station, or ISS, and other low Earth orbit missions. Launching from right here at Kennedy Space Center, astronauts can travel to the ISS aboard spacecraft developed by private companies SpaceX and Boeing. SpaceX's capsule, Crew Dragon, is capable of carrying up to 7 astronauts and cargo launched on SpaceX's own Falcon 9 rocket. Crew Dragon, upon returning to Earth, splashes down in the ocean in one of 7 different locations off the coast of Florida. These are chosen based on specific criteria such as weather and location of the spacecraft in orbit. On May 30th, 2020, SpaceX launched Demonstration Mission 2, also known as Demo 2, the first crewed test flight of the Crew Dragon. NASA's astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley launched to the ISS for the final step in proving the reliability of SpaceX's crewed transportation system. With the success of Demo 2, SpaceX is now regularly sending crews to the ISS. Boeing's spacecraft, the CST-100 Starliner, has also undergone orbital flight tests in order to send crews to the space station. It's able to seat up to 7 astronauts and cargo. Starliner launches atop an Atlas V rocket made by United Launch Alliance, or ULA. Upon its return to Earth, rather than splashing down in the ocean, Starliner deploys airbags to land in the desert of the western United States. Starliner was actually the first American-made human-rated capsule to have landed on land. On September 4, 2015, Boeing opened its commercial crew and cargo processing facility in what was formerly the orbiter processing facility for the Space Shuttle program. This building you'll see adjacent to the VAB boasts a large, colorful mural of the Starliner in orbit. The commercial crew program is allowing private companies to design in the most efficient and cost-effective way, while NASA engineers offer oversight and expertise. While these companies focus on providing transportation services to and from low Earth orbit, NASA is freed up to focus on deep space missions.
Surrounded by the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. While the refuge in total takes up 140,000 acres, NASA only occupies about 7,000 acres. Other than the few launch pads and facilities you see spotted across the horizon, this area remains a refuge for 150,000 species of plants and animals. I want to introduce you to Becky Bolt, who has been a NASA wildlife ecologist here at KSC for nearly 35 years. Becky, what kind of wildlife can we expect to see here today?
We have lots and lots of different kinds of wildlife. We have over 400 species that occur out here on the Space Center. Look in the ditches and you'll see lots of wading birds, tall herons, egrets, ibises. There's several species of those, and I can pretty much guarantee you're going to see some of those. We have bobcats, raccoons, all kinds of animals.
Now, what is your role as a wildlife ecologist?
One of the main things we do is support operations. So people always think, oh, that's launch. Well, Kennedy Space Center is big and we have a lot of employees. It's like a city. We have lots of roads, we have lots of buildings. And so there's lots of maintenance and construction. So anything that might impact the habitat or wildlife, we have to go out and we check it out. And we work with the project managers to make sure that animals aren't harmed. Gopher tortoises are notorious for this. They go places where they shouldn't be, and sometimes we have to move them. We also support launches. We do a lot of research because we help the land managers, which on Kennedy Space Center, the land managers are the Fish and Wildlife Service, because this is a wildlife refuge. We have federally listed scrub jays and federally listed beach mice. There's probably some watching us right now. And so we provide that data to them so they know how to manage the land in the best way.
What are some of the more recent projects you've worked on here?
The most exciting new project that we have, and it's not really new, it started in 2010, but it's been ongoing since then, is our Created Dune project. We were having problems with when there are bad storms, hurricanes, which we get a fair amount. It was destroying our primary dune here, and we were getting washover that was getting closer and closer to facilities. We created dunes and took lots of sand and spread it out and piled it up and planted it with native vegetation.
Oh yeah, because you can see there's a launch pad right here, the ocean's right there. And the dune is protecting it.
Right.
Well, Becky, thank you so much for teaching us how nature meets technology here at KSC, and hopefully our guests on our tour will see some of this wildlife today.
For 20 years, a pine tree along the Kennedy Parkway has been home to the largest eagle's nest on Kennedy Space Center. Eagles have long been a symbol at NASA for human spaceflight, including the famous Apollo 11 mission. Weighing thousands of pounds and about the size of a king-size bed, the eagles continue to return to this nest to raise their eaglets year after year. The eagles arrive to the nest in late August, hatch their eaglets around December, and remain there until they migrate north again in the spring. After all these years, it may not be surprising that the tree containing the nest has been damaged by natural forces, impacted by wildfires, hurricanes, wind-borne salt spray, and even a pine bark beetle attack. The tree's overall health has declined. Eagles are very resilient, and all signs indicate that in the event our resident eagles leave the tree, they'll usually rebuild to the next closest optimal nesting spot. And there are plenty of options for them here at the Kennedy Space Center.
Did you ever want to be an astronaut? Maybe it was the cool spacesuits, or the idea of floating in microgravity. Whatever the reason, it takes dreamers, thinkers, and adventurers to push the boundaries of human space exploration. But no matter how far we explore beyond our world, the journey ultimately starts right here, in the imagination of our youth. It is so important to support STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, focused education curricula to foster that next generation of rocket scientists, physicists, chemists, and of course, astronauts. These core building blocks form the foundation of the incredible achievements of NASA. The astronaut training experience here at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex works with some of these bright children who may one day be the people who walk across the gantry into a capsule on their way to Mars.
My favorite thing about space is how we know so much, but then there's so much we can learn about it because of how big and endless it is.
What I love about the ATX Center is the microgravity simulator. That was really fun because it felt like you were fixing the ISS in like zero gravity.
My favorite thing here at the Visitor Complex, if I had to choose, would be the shuttle launch simulator, because it's so awesome to feel what the astronauts will feel like when they take off.
More than 60 years of innately curious and wildly ambitious space pioneers have led us to countless new discoveries and modern conveniences we enjoy today. Literally thousands of items can trace their roots back to NASA, from smoke detectors and memory foam mattresses to life-saving medical equipment. It's amazing how the work being done to take us thousands of miles into space is also making life better right here on Earth. Of all the benefits of modern technology, perhaps none are more powerful than our ability to connect with another person anywhere, instantly. To pick up a cell phone and call a loved one many thousands of miles away, to instantly share a photo with our network of friends, to collaborate and share information with like-minded people to create something great together. In a way, the modern communications technologies are making Earth feel like a smaller place. And while they are bringing us closer together, they are also enabling us to look further beyond our horizons. The journey starts here. By going behind the gates at Kennedy Space Center today, we each took our own small step toward the future of space exploration by learning and being inspired by the incredible achievements of NASA.
We're in the building. So this is the actual Atlantis shuttle. So this was the actual space shuttle that flew for 23 years. Isn't that what they said, Charlie?
I think so.
And then it would open up in the middle and these giant arms would come out. And this is what they used to fly over and over and over. It had to have its own airplane. So when it landed, they would clip it to the top of an airplane like a Lego piece and fly it home in the airplane. Alright, so now they're talking about how they were able to create the little, when they go out of the shuttle and they zip around on those rockets, how they used human space and how they created it so that then they could do spacewalks. And the suits. Why are the suits white? Because it reflects the heat. And this is all about the arm.
So I'm guessing Canada helped them with the shuttle by building the arms.
I can't imagine the whole idea of a spacewalk. Oh, there they are. I'm going to show you up. So here's what one of the satellites look like, right? Is that what that is? Oh. This is the Hubble Space Telescope. So this is what the Hubble. And then there's the EVA spacesuit. Let's see. You see the blue guy's telling you what to do.
Yeah. Top.
There you go, right there.
What is he doing?
He's fixing the International Space Station.
Top to bottom, okay.
Okay, so I just want to show you one more video of the bottom side of the Space Shuttle Atlantis because I'm quite taken by these tiles. And it's so interesting because you can smell, it smells like a grill or an old barbecue or that kind of thing, just because you can tell that it's been launched a million times. There's also a lot of really cool stuff in here. So there's like an area down there that talks about what it's like to live and work in space, right? So this is a picture of, there's some rockets down there. And then over here on this side, there's like a crawl through area that shows you what it's like to crawl through the International Space Station. Which, by the way, did you know the International Space Station is larger than a 6-bedroom house? It weighs almost 1 million pounds and it travels the equivalent distance to the moon and back in a day. It's super crazy, huh? Okay guys, so here's what's crazy. We're in Avatar. I want you to think about this as an ecosystem and think about what kinds of plants and animals you see in this Avatar ecosystem ride.
Someday the south. Smoke in the south. I only think.
and never falling my feet. Now maintain low.
Lot of interesting plants and animals. I want you to think about the Avatar ecosystem. Okay guys, so it's crazy. We just went on the Navi River ride in the world of Pandora. You can see what's happening in the animal kingdom, and then now we're gonna head over the bridge and into Dino Land to see what's going on there. Maybe we'll see some dinosaurs for y'all. That'd be fun. See the river. There it is. Now we're headed into Dino Land.
Hello. I'm Dr. Marsh, director of the Dino Institute, and I hope you enjoyed those quaint exhibits in the old wing. That's how dinosaurs have been presented to the public since the study of fossils began over 150 years ago. Today, that bare bones approach is about to become extinct. In a perfect blending of science and technology, the Dino Institute has created the Time Rover, an amazing vehicle that will literally transport you to the age of the dinosaurs. How? That's proprietary. But the result is a breathtaking journey through a prehistoric world where you'll witness the most spectacular creatures to ever walk the earth. In a moment, you'll be going live to our control center for a comprehensive safety briefing, and then it's on to the tour that will convince you forever that the future is truly in the past.
Hello there. Welcome to our little trans-dimensional joyride, folks. I'm Dr. Seeker, your friendly controller and a heck of a paleontologist, if I do say so myself. But let's not talk about me. Let's talk about you and how you can help me make history today with the Time Rover. It's like this. If I can bring you back from the Cretaceous period, it stands to reason that I can bring back a live dinosaur with you. And not just any dinosaur. Take a look at this guy. He's an iguanodon, and I'm certain that he is the key to understanding these magnificent creatures. I tagged him with a locator during an unauthorized field trip. Otherwise, I'd be traveling with you. Right now, our dino should be about here, at the very end of the Cretaceous period. That's where you're going today.
I've arrived, it seems, just in time to correct a little misstatement.
Dr. Marsh.
That is impossibly close to the giant asteroid impact that destroyed most life forms on Earth. Our tours are designed to take you to the early Cretaceous period. And I can assure you that all time rovers have been securely locked on those coordinates.
That's right. See? Securely locked. Access denied.
Continue.
Of course. We were just talking about seatbelts. Plug them in, use them. It can get kind of choppy out there, so keep your hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times. Flash photography? I wouldn't. It alters the homing signal, and that's not good. Oh, and one more thing. Those locked coordinates? We're in. Now, here's the drill. You follow the homing signal to the iguanodon, then I'll enlarge the transport field, and boom, you're back with one additional passenger extra large. And don't worry about that asteroid. You'll be in and out of there before it even breaks the atmosphere. Trust me, what could go wrong?
routing.
This is Seeker. Listen up. We've got to get in, grab the iguanodon, and get out before that asteroid hits. Let's roll! Okay, now, let's go get that dino. Computer, what are you tracking?
Styracosaurus.
Not our dino.
Warning, meteor shower in range.
Just little one.
Oleoramus. Hadrosaur. Raptor.
Time to get serious. Locking autopilot on homing signal now. Hang on!